Speaking of the greatest tight end in franchise history, George Kittle. He's been doing it all season. The only people who can slow down George Kittle this season are Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. For whatever reason, they weren't interested in going to George, and Buffalo didn't work out so great for the team. Today, they went back to George. And George is he's so Midwestern. He would never go up to Brock Purdy or Kyle Shanahan during a game, make a scene, and show that he's, Travis Kelce did that in the Super Bowl to add Andy Reid, and it was cool. Like, good job. I mean, search yourself. Yeah, you're a future Hall of Famer. George could do the same thing. He's just from Iowa, and that's not how people from Iowa work. So he's always like very aw shucks, don't you know kind of guy. And instead of saying, Kyle, give me the freaking ball, he goes, oh, heavens, I was open. I didn't get to run very many routes. And boom, next game, Kyle's like, all right. Here's the ball. Here's the thing. The Niners, I understand why they don't give George Kittle a bunch of like 10, 12 targets a game, because he probably has 4 injuries right now that he won't talk about. And he might have to have surgery after that. Who knows? So I feel like Kyle's trying to sort of preserve him, because, when he goes down, they're never going to, they haven't been able to find a backup tight end ever. So they really need him to be here until he's 35, 36, the way the Travis Kelce is there for the Chiefs. So they're trying to preserve him, I guess. But you know what? There's freaking 4 games left in the season. And you're not dead yet. The only way you're going to possibly win these games down the stretch is to give the ball to George Kittle as much as you freaking can. There's nothing left to pace. There's nothing left to pace themselves. Give them the freaking ball. 6 was great tonight. 12 next week. Next week, 4 games. Now, maybe 31-year-old George Kittle won't be able to do that in 4 days. I don't know. But you know what? If he doesn't, the season's over. So my game plan, Kyle, my humble suggestion the rest of the way is give the freaking ball to George. Get out of the way and get all the good plays you have for George Kittle on your play sheet. There's got to be a George Kittle section. Go to the George Kittle section and then organize it by good plays. Have the good ones at the top and the bad ones at the bottom. And call the good ones for George. Call the stuff that you haven't called that much. Kyle Shanahan does this thing where he'll call a play and it works, and then he'll be like, boom, I'm not calling that for another 4 years. Like, now's the time. And I love that with the season on the line, right off the bat, it's like screen to Kittle over the middle. When you watch the Lions this year, Ben Johnson, who everyone wants, how often does he call a screen to Sam Laporta? It seems like he does it every other drive. And he does it, and you're like, why do the Niners not do that with George Kittle? He's twice as good as Sam Laporta. Why does that only work in Detroit? It feels like Kyle finally watched something. He's like begrudged. He's like, I don't like Ben Johnson. I'm not watching that. Finally watched some Lions film. He's like, all right, well, I could do that. All right, well, my tight end could do that. All of a sudden, George Kittle was wide freaking open, breaking tackles. Like, he should have been doing that all year. But you know what? This isn't about looking back. The Niners have won 1 game in a row, and they're still, and as George said, they got everything ahead of them. Everything's in front of them. I don't know what that means, because there's so much behind them, and they're 6-7, but they got everything in front of them. And he's here. It would be such a shame if they were to lose on Thursday at home here, and George Kittle were to have like 1 or 2 catches. In retrospect, what a shame it was that they lost the Super Bowl and George Kittle had 2 catches. Now, I know he had an issue. He had a shoulder thing. Still. I understand in 2021 why Deebo Samuel sort of overtook George Kittle as the go-to guy in the offense, because Deebo was on another level. But that was 1 year. And then I understand why McCaffrey got so many touches in 2023, because he was having a great year. But when it comes to mismatches in the passing game, Kittle's the number 1 guy in the Niners. Not Ayuk, not Deebo, not McCaffrey. McCaffrey is tough on linebackers because he runs those little choice routes and he can catch the ball 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, make the guy miss and get 10 yards. That's great. But George Kittle is a mismatch on DBs, No linebacker can cover him either. You have to put a safety on him, and that safety can't cover him either. And when Kittle catches the ball, it's usually down the field, and it's for big gains. He is such a more valuable receiver than McCaffrey. McCaffrey may limit some coverages that defenses call, but in terms of like actual production, Kittle is so much more valuable as a receiver. And they're so lucky that they have him. And they really got to make sure that they keep giving him the freaking ball, because the more they give it to him, the better their chances are that they go to the playoffs. Mike drops with Monza, says, oh, look, the Niners look great against the Bears. Are we serious right now? Been getting slapped around for weeks and we're pumped about the Bears? Sad. That's a fair point. And again, it's why I started my show with it's the Bears. But I just want to say that what's been so frustrating about the Niners this year is that while they've been losing, they haven't been putting their best foot forward. It's like, it'd be one thing if you lost, but like, can you just make sure that Kittle and Jennings get the most targets and Debo has like 2 or 3, please? Can you just play the best players? Can you just distribute the ball in a way that freaking makes sense, please? And then when you lose, we'll at least understand that like you were just not as good as that team. But then the Niners do something like this today, and it's like, oh, right. This is what you could have been doing all season. I'm not saying winning by 25 is what they could have been doing all season, but like at least the things they could control, their standard. Now, can they maintain this standard on Thursday against the Rams? Their season depends on it. I'm not saying they will, but we'll see. William Engelman says Debo had quite possibly the fastest fall from grace physically I might have ever seen. Almost every receiver can break tackles better than him. It's sad. Sad. Duck Twice says Zach and Mac. I used AI. I'm lost, but I love you. Gladiator says 3 out of 4 wins gets us in the playoffs. Eli says it's the Bears. Kyle will break his toys and lose. I'm not disputing that. Belichick 2024 says Grant just got my first set of golf clubs at 27 years old. Give me some quick tips from a recent beginner. LOL. Get lessons. I haven't had any yet, and I played golf yesterday, and I was terrible. And I constantly change my swing, and I feel like I'm practicing the wrong things. But what they say is, don't just go to the driving range and smash the driver all day. You know what I mean? Because at least 50% of your shots are putts. So make sure you're putting around left to right, right to left, uphill, downhill. Chip. You gotta know how to chip. A lot of different ways. You gotta be chipping, man. And then, if you can't hit the driver, it's tough, man. I slice. Don't use the driver if you can't hit it. All right. Because the worst thing you want is 3 off. You can't do well with 3 off the tee. You gotta use what you can keep and play. How about that? Mac and Go. Oh, we're talking about nicknames. Mac and Go. I like that. Okay. It's not the best one, but I liked it. Kyle doesn't deserve Kittle and Jennings. Today, he coached like a guy who does.